Hello, guys. Good to see you. This is part one of a debate that I had with a Kentucky atheist about 3 weeks ago. And I didn't really publicize it because we had agreed to do a part two. You'll see by the end of the part two of what I post here, you'll see by the end of that why we had agreed to a moderated debate on a neutral area with a neutral moderator. But you'll also see, I'm sure, why he has now backed out of debate number two on this same issue. And I've got to say, as you go through this, you know, I can't accuse him. I would feel bad if I accused him of being as ignorant as he acts through this. He even muted me for several minutes. And I could say it's out of ignorance, but I think saying that he was gaslighting me, accusing him of gaslighting all the way through this would be much kinder to the Kentucky atheist. I don't believe anybody is this ignorant. You'll see what I'm talking about, though. Everything will speak for itself. And here we go.
Looks like you got the right one ready now. Go for it.
Yeah. Introduction. You'll see takes place right after the introduction, and he let me go first, and I was a presentation afterward that went into some very precise statements made by Mary. It's Mary Schweitzer, appearing on 60 Minutes.
Okay.
What happened next happened by mistake. Mary put some fragments of the bone in acid to dissolve away the outermost layer of mineral, but the acid should have been nothing left, but there was, and it was elastic, like living tissue.
This is the piece.
No.
She showed us video she took under the microscope.
That's really what happened?
Yes.
That's the dinosaur bone?
Without mineral now. That's what was left.
It looked like the soft tissue she would have expected to find if it had been modern bone. This was impossible. This bone was 68 million years old.
So you see this and you think, what? You
I didn't want to tell anybody.
You'd be ridiculed,
Yes.
right?
And so I said to my technician, okay, do it again. I don't believe it.
And yet, in sample after sample, they were there. Things that looked suspiciously like flexible, transparent blood vessels. She finally mustered the courage to tell Jack.
She said she dissolved the bone away and there were blood vessels. And, I was like shocked. I mean,
How could that be?
How could that be? That's right.
The things Mary was finding inside dinosaur bones,
Look at that.
blood vessels, and even what seemed to be intact cells, pose a radical challenge to the existing rules of science, that organic material can't possibly survive even 1 million years, let alone 68 million. Mary, Jack, and their team published their B-Rex findings in a series of papers in the journal Science and were promptly attacked. Critics said their samples might have been contaminated, or that the supposed blood vessels were actually something called biofilm, a type of slime. But as Mary showed us, she's been able to replicate her findings. These are pieces of an even older dinosaur, a well-preserved 80-million-year-old duckbill. When she dissolved it away in acid,
Let's put this under the scope here.
well, look.
Is that a blood vessel?
This is a blood vessel. You see the branches right there? And look at all of them. And it's so consistent over and over and over again. We do this bone and it comes out and I get excited every time. I can't help it. I mean, 80 million years old.
Mary published her new results last year, and while some of her critics have been swayed, The controversy still rages, and the stakes are high. If blood vessels can survive 80 million years, what about DNA?
For the first time ever, you can make your photos talk, sing, and dance with flawless hand and body movements. It's something you've never seen before.
Interesting stuff, isn't it?
G'day everyone, welcome to another CMI podcast. This one
can
is
you
about
pause for 1
dinosaur
second?
soft tissue, and I'm Dr.
Yeah.
Jonathan Safdie for
Yeah.
Creation Ministries
I'm trying to.
US from Australia.
There it goes. Okay.
So is this a different video or is that okay?
No, that just went on. There was a few things there in the that I wanted everybody to see. First of all, a lot of people don't understand what was really found. Some people think it was a glob of meat hanging on bone. No, that's not what they found. And some people believe it was just, they don't understand that this included a lot of things that were actually found, from proteins and, for instance, collagen was found, down to blood vessels and blood cells in the tracks.
No, they didn't find any cells.
Well,
They found what appeared to be blood vessels, but I've also got a Mary Schweitzer video that I had ready before we even came on here, and let me play it to add some context real quick, okay?
okay, sure.
Recently in a Young Earth seminar where your research was used to support claims that working blood vessels, fresh blood cells, and intact DNA had been found in dinosaur cells or dinosaur fossils. Is that a fair characterization of your research?
It's wrong on all counts. Do we have blood cells? No, we do not have blood cells. I don't have the data to support that. We do have very rigorous evidence for DNA as the chemical in our dinosaur bone. And furthermore, it localizes using chemical methods to these osteocytes where you would expect it to be. But can I say it's dinosaur DNA? No, I can't, because it can be anything else on the planet unless I have sequence. And sequencing the DNA we pull out of our bones has so far proven to be impossible. They have round red structures that localize to the blood vessel channels. They have the morphological characteristics of blood vessels. They have a chemical makeup similar to what you'd expect blood cells to have. And I've never figured out why people are more focused on these little red blood cells than they are on the osteocytes, which are way cooler.
Well, because even if they were really intact, red blood cells and red blood vessels, that doesn't change anything, correct? I mean, that doesn't change our understanding of the age of the Earth. It only changes our understanding of how things are fossilized, correct?
Yes, exactly. And the cool thing of it is, if we quit wasting time on how old these things are and start getting at why are they there, it has huge implications that go far beyond dinosaurs.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Now, at this point, you notice that I started to speak, and hello, Sherry. At this point, you notice that I start to speak, and then I shut off. That's because he mutes me, and I don't even know it. So I'm going through this right now, giving a full explanation of exactly what she meant. And because I happen to be familiar with that little sound bite there. And I'm familiar with everything. So you see him stumbling now, pretending like he doesn't know that I'm not speaking. But everybody in the chat there is asking him, "Am I mute? Is he muted?"
Are you muted, Eric? Can you guys hear him now?
But you notice I did start speaking, didn't I? And then I was suddenly cut off. Wow.
Oh. I got you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So did they get to hear what I just said, though?
No.
Okay. Well, what you're saying is true, but what I said was true too. Mary explains in the video that you just played that can she say that these are blood cells? And can she say that that is dino DNA? No, she can't, because it hadn't been tested up until that point. It was only observed, and that's what it looks like to them. So the way it's described, though, in the 60 Minutes interview and in the one that you just played as well, the way it's described, she does describe the veins, and that in the tracks of those veins, you do see what appears to be a red blood cell. But like I said, as of that point, they had not been tested, so she couldn't say that that's what it was.
Well, what are you trying to assert by bringing up Mary Schweitzer's work? Because she's been heavily misrepresented by creationists as finding things that show that the Earth isn't, or that dinosaurs aren't, millions of years old, and her work also, so what she did was she left the sample setting in acid, and she found the osteocytes where those blood vessels were mineralized, and it ate the minerals off of them. So there was no soft tissue found. They found that because it dissolved the fossil, you were able to see the fossilized vessels that were there, but they were not soft at any time until she soaked them in acid for longer than she was supposed to.
Right, but they weren't mineralized either at the same time.
She said that.
Well,
she said that in the 60 Minutes interview. She said that it ate the mineralization off the outside of it so that she could see it.
Okay, I'll pull something up for you from her paper.
But what are you trying to assert by bringing her up is what I'm asking, because we may be arguing about nothing here. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Well, I'm going to show you several things right here.
Because she even says in there that she says it's 80 million years old in the 60 Minute interview.
Okay,
so
let me show you her paper here. Let me see. This is from the Royal Society, and then they've truncated it, but I'm going to have to pull it up from somewhere else to show you after the abstract, though. But here's the abstract. Can you see it, or do I need to share that?
You got to share it for me to put it on screen.
Okay. Now this is Mary's paper, and by the way, yeah, she was attacked, and she was afraid, and she had a lot of reason to be afraid. The first thing that
she was mad.
Yeah, well, yeah, I followed this pretty closely. She was attacked, and they were implying that they didn't know the difference between biofilm and biological tissues, and that they were quacks for having misrepresented their findings. Well, I don't know if you know who she worked for, but she worked for oh gosh, what's his name? Jack. Anyway, he was like the top paleontologist in his field for decades. He was the science advisor for the Jurassic Park movies. Had the biggest name in paleontology, a huge lab, great reputation. And so his reputation was being dragged through the mud. Mary earned her PhD, though, by proving, first of all, through numerous tests, that these were biological tissues and not just biofilm. And then she went on to do this experiment right here. This is a role for iron and oxygen chemistry in preserving soft tissues, cells and molecules from deep time. And in the abstract, she says some really important stuff here. The persistence of original soft tissues in Mesozoic fossil bone is not explained by current chemical degradation models. In other words, this is why she said it was impossible in the 60 Minutes interviews and BBC and others, because these things have half-lives. These materials all have half-lives, and yeah, this is real science coming up against real science.
So you are claiming that they're not 80 million years old.
I'm claiming that they can't be.
Well, I
You'll-
don't know how you're gonna cite Mary Schweitzer when I just showed you in the very interview you gave. She says they're 80 million years old. In
Well-
the interview that I showed you, that was her talking.
Mhm.
She says that these things have been misrepresented as things that they are not, and they're using it to try and argue about the age when that is not a question. That
Well-
it's more about fossil formation. It has nothing to do with the age of these things. There were not soft tissues like found inside the bone, just soft tissues laying there. It was a result of the acid that she put on it. She found where those blood vessels were, and it increased their understanding of how those things fossilize.
Well, that's the problem. They weren't fossilized.
That they were, and she says so. Here, listen to what she says again.
Well, hold on. Can I read this for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let me go back to this because I'm going to have to bring up the full article for you.
Mary Schweitzer has been very vocal for years now about this and about creationists trying to take and misrepresent her work as if she found cells and soft tissues in these fossils when she didn't. And that's exactly what she just said with her own voice in what I played.
Yeah.
So
well,
I kind of have a problem with what you're trying to drive at here, but so this is essentially quote mining now, because in the very
No.
interview you
no, I'm not
says-
mining. I can promise you that. This right here, if you're sharing this for
yeah,
everybody,
it's up there.
this is the same paper. Only I had to give you my copy of this because at the site that we were just at, where it was printed up, they've only got the up to the abstract. This is the full article. So once we get past the abstract, we go down to the introduction. Now, this is what I find interesting. Preservation of structures in fossils that were not originally mineralized in the living organisms is uncommon, but it is represented in microbes, plants, and animals in disparate environments throughout the fossil record. So right there, she's telling you not all of this stuff is fossilized. Not all of it is mineralized. There are some aspects of this soft tissue left. She goes on to say, soft tissue structures retaining some aspects of the original material and thus not completely replaced replicas have been described in Mesozoic fossil bone as early as the 1960s.
Yeah.
In other words, they've been finding soft tissue for over 50 years before they even said anything about it. And she was the first one to say something about this.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's because they got a dog in the race. And that this is not going that's not going to be good publicity. Well, conspiracy happens, brother. It happens.
So right, no, you're right, it does, but to suggest it with no evidence is irrational.
Interestingly, too, I got to say this. I'll throw this in. Her boss, where she was Jack Horner, and he was the biggest paleontologist of his day, probably of the last 200 years. Seriously, the man was like a marvel, and he had a stellar reputation up until this point. But now they find this in his lab, and everybody begins to ridicule them and dragging his reputation through the mud. So here you go. Oh, by the way, Jack Horner is an atheist, so he does have a dog in this race. Well, I would suggest that that's the only alternative I can come up with.
Aunt Jerry, shut up with it. Sorry, 1 second, Eric. Aunt Jerry.
Well, I would suggest that that's the only alternative I can come up with.
Aunt Jerry, shut up with it. Sorry, 1 second, Eric. Aunt Jerry, will you keep an eye on that and handle it in chat there? If he can't behave, just go ahead and ban him.
Let me check. I hope I don't have any friends acting up out there.
Master Pastor is making misogynistic remarks about
okay.
not having to listen to women and stuff like that.
Master Pastor, I don't know you, but I'm going to ask, please settle down.
Yeah, don't act like that.
I apologize for that.
No, it's not you. He's here all the time. He
Okay.
comes often. We have to keep an eye on him sometimes, but
Yeah,
no big deal.
that's okay. So you see, she does go into her paper as she goes down into the introduction. We do see that she comes right out and tells us that there is soft tissue structures retaining
Structures, yes.
of the original material, and thus not completely replaced replicas. In other words, those really were blood vessels.
Yes.
Yeah.
At one time, they were blood vessels.
Hello, Beckel. Good to see you, by the way. God bless you, man. Welcome. We're going to be doing probably a review of this sometime in the near future. I think you'll see why he backed out of our rematch. Fossilized. That's what showed was what was not yet complete.
He didn't say that. In fact, in the interview I showed, she said the opposite, that she did not find soft tissues that weren't fossilized.
Well, that's not.
I mean, it's her words. I don't know what else to tell you. Like
that's not what she's saying. Look here.
She said, he says, what do you think about creationists saying that you found soft tissues, cells, DNA, and all those things in fossilized dinosaur bones? And she said, all of those are wrong. That's not what I was saying. That's what she said in what I showed you.
Because at that point she hadn't tested any of that stuff to see if they.
Well after the fact. This was just a couple years ago.
Right. She had not tested and up until that point. But there's something else you should know about this too. Do you realize that her boss is not going to let that dinosaur be carbon tested?
Why would they carbon test it?
And do you know why he won't? He says it's because of the spin creationists will get from what they find.
Right, because carbon testing will give a date between 10,000 and 60,000 years. They know it's 80 million years old. So if they carbon test it, it's going to give a date in that range because that's the only dates it gives. Well, so it's the wrong tool for the job. So why would they carbon test it?
If they carbon tested it and it really is 80 million years old, they should find nothing.
That's not true. Carbon exists in everything.
Well, they not C14.
Yes, it does.
Well,
C14 is all in the ground, all in the water. It's in almost all the bones we find in small amounts. It's in fact, it's one of the major parts of the background radiation on Earth. It's in everything almost.
Well, no, that's not true. I'm afraid
that's absolutely true. And I can show you information for it if you want.
But if you look right here and at the introduction, she says right here in the very first sentence, they were not originally mineralized. It was not all originally mineralized, but is represented in microbes, plants, animals, and disparate environments throughout the fossil record, and references therein soft tissue structures retaining some aspects of the original material and thus not completely replaced replicas have been described. In other words, these are not completely fossilized. They have been described and in the Mesozoic fossils. Now, the exceptional preservation has been observed for decades, but is not addressed by models of fossilization processes. So there she goes again, admitting that it's been decades we've known this, and yet we haven't told anybody until recently. But it is not addressed by models of fossilization processes.
It's addressed by her as being misrepresented by you.
And now, let's see.
How do you explain that? That's my problem here. How do you explain that the person that you are quoting says that you are misrepresenting her and lying about her work? How do you explain that?
She gave us the numbers to prove this.
But look, you can't you can't quote somebody and say, this is my source, when she says you're wrong, right? She's
She
saying,
didn't
this is
say
not what my work shows. And
she
she's a
didn't-
believer.
she didn't say I'm wrong about what I'm about to show you.
No, but you're misrepresenting. Like you're talking about, she found what she found and stuff, like saying it wasn't originally. Why do you think they said it wasn't originally mineralized instead of saying it wasn't mineralized at all? Why do you think they said it that way?
Because it was
Because we're
partially
talking
mineral-
about the formation of fossils.
what is
And that was what they discovered here, is how these things form differently than what they thought. It has nothing to do with the age of it or finding carbon in it or any of that stuff. None of that was part of this at
well,
all.
you're forgetting
There's,
half-lives. What's the half-life of collagen?
oh, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up to give you an exact number.
Would you like that number?
You can give it to me if you want. I mean, they didn't find live collagen though.
Well, sure they did. Can you see here the effect of collagen turnover of the accumulation of advanced glaciation in products? Can you see this?
I can see the paper you have on screen.
Okay, is that what it says?
It's whatever you were showing a minute ago. You have to share whatever you want me to see.
Okay.
It's time for you to get your reading super powered. So stop straining your eyes and start listening.
Okay, basically you're going to find that there's several different types of collagen. You can, down here, we find out, for instance, that skin collagen. Can you guys hear the audio now? I just saw somebody say that they couldn't hear the audio. Can you hear the audio?
They call me a god.
Something I've previously learned, I get to go and brush up on it and say, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and then talk about it. Thank you, whoever did that. It doesn't tell me who that is. Let me see if I can see. Oh, the Unshaw podcast. That's who that was. Thank you, Robert. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if people want to make money, they would be better off becoming an apologist. Because
well, right. I mean, the Discovery Institute, for example. So where we see that there are people.
Oh, wow. I don't have any idea what just happened there. Oh, well. If you go to something that I uploaded last night, you'll see that if you go to my live videos, you'll see I uploaded a part 2. And that takes off pretty much right here where this left off. But you're going to see how much gaslighting this guy does all the way through our debate. So we'll just call this part 1. This is where part 2 pretty much picked up in what I posted last night. And we're going to try to do a review of the whole debate. It's the gaslighting here is just utterly ridiculous, right down to stating that Mary doesn't state what she states in her written peer-reviewed articles. He denies that she found, I mean, we've got this in her peer-reviewed articles that she found collagen. And he denies that she found collagen. He denied it was even written there. She says in her peer-reviewed work that there's aspects of the original tissue that is contained within the bones, and that it was unmineralized. And he refused to even act like he understood what that meant, and said, no, the whole thing was fossilized. Well, no, it wasn't. That's how she found soft tissues. She goes on to describe in a BBC interview, CNN interview, live, on video, and in writing, that this was all tested. And when she burnt away what was mineralized, what was left was soft tissues that included things like osteocytes, for gosh sakes, osteocytes and blood vessels, and things that were laying in the tracks of those blood vessels that looked like red blood cells, and that they actually had what is called heme, Heme, which is our blood is filled with this particular thing, and it brings oxygen to the blood. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, he denies that she says all of this. So what do you do with the guy that keeps putting you on mute and denies what she says right there on video, and denies what she says right there in her papers? And then you'll see in part 2 also that he wouldn't even sit down to do the math. He just denied it. He said, I'm doing it wrong. Why? Because this math proves that these dinosaur bones cannot even be 1 million years old. But this is testable, repeatable science. It has to do with half-lives, folks. When you figure the half-life of collagen, and you'll see in part 2, he didn't even know collagen had a half-life. He denied it. He denied that DNA has a half-life. DNA has a half-life of 500 and some odd years. I think it's 524 or something like that. The collagen that we were working on, I was generous with the math. I used the collagen with the longest half-life. You see, blood collagen has only 7 or 8 days half-life. Skin collagen is only 15 years, but the collagen that's found in your cartilage has a half-life of 117 years. So if they find this stuff in these bones, and they did, then we can figure by the half-lives the oldest possible age of these bones. And it doesn't even work out to 250,000 years old. So why is this important? Because this is proving out that the death of the dinosaur was pretty recent, guys. Pretty recent. This is new. These are the numbers that prove it. So you have a hard science here proving the young age of these bones. So go ahead and check out part 2. It's already up, so you won't miss anything. You'll see what I said. And further on down the road here, we can do a review of this point by point, because I'd love for you guys to see this and to have this available. This is a surefire, hands down proof that they buffaloed us all along, guys. It shows you the fraud of evolution, the knowing fraud, how they even have us classified wrong with Denisovans and Neanderthals. And they do these things in order to keep an illusion of evolution where there is none. So I'm not going to go on and on and on. How you doing, Mike? God bless you, brother. Good to see you. Chris, God bless you. Good to see you guys. Go ahead and check out part 2. It's in my videos under the live ones. It was put up last night. God bless you guys. Talk to you soon.